Hello, welcome to That Millwall Podcast. My name's Omar. Joining me today, I've got Stephen with me. Hello, mate. How are you?
Hello, Omar. I won't ruin who the other guest is for those listening on Spotify. They're all in suspense now. But I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You've got a terrible knack of doing that, not in a terrible way.
And that's why I've stopped this time.
The third guest, if you want to reveal yourself, actually, if you want, it's
Frankie. You caught by surprise then, mate. I was off guard.
I know. I feel like I'm just keeping everyone on their toes today. Why not? But hello, Frankie. How are you, pal? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. You both all right?
Yeah, we're living the dream.
Yeah,
I
good,
think.
Mate. Good.
Are we living the dream? I mean, well, at least they seem by the title, but Tom Bradshaw is on his way out of Millwall. And I think in his 7th season with the club, he has finally hit the exit door. He's leaving this January. He's on his way to Oxford United, supposedly for an undisclosed fee. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a bit and see what that means and what that looks like. We'll speculate to accumulate, as they say. We're also going to talk a bit about Aaron Connolly, who's been linked with the club. We touched on that in our last show, but if you look into the logic of it, Bradshaw's leaving. Someone might be coming in. It seems like that might have legs, so we'll talk a bit at length of that. And we'll also touch a bit on other general transfer news and perhaps maybe wish lists of who we still want to come in for the rest of the summer, the January window. If you're new around here and you haven't seen us before, please be sure to subscribe, leave comments, give us your thoughts on what any of us say. We do tend to go back at you in the comments on YouTube, so we like that little bit of debate and interaction. Keep it all nice and friendly, though, at times. I mean, some of us have sensitive souls on here, not myself, but, I won't speak on behalf of the other two. But no, we're going to go straight into it. And as I mentioned, guys, Tom Bradshaw is leaving. Frankie, you're the stats man here. You got some statistics for us. Did you want to maybe whisk off some bits about Bradshaw and his time at the Den, mate?
Yeah, of course, mate. So as I said, joined in the 2017 season. In that time, he's played 210 times for the club, either starting or coming as a sub. 45 goals in that time period, which is about 1 in 4.5 games ish. 12 assists in there as well. So, I mean, when you actually look it up, it's not a terrible turnaround, is it? We're the club who's played the most amount of games for by an absolute mile, and the best he's had at this level. So I think it's been a good servant for the club, all in all.
I do agree. I think, like I said, 7 seasons at, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? He's in his 6th season. No, 7th season at the club. I'm correct the first time. Stephen, he's been here a long time. He's in the 200 plus appearance, category, so to speak. Not everyone gets to that point in a lot of football clubs, and 45 goals in 210 games, as mentioned, it's not to be sniffed at. It's 45 more goals than we've scored for Millwall, do you know what I mean? But what's your thoughts when you hear that and the news of him departing in general, mate?
The record isn't as bad as it seems. I think a lot of people will look at, he tends to score goals in clusters. So he'd look unbelievable for a spell of 5-6 games, and then it would go a bit quiet. So people would obviously look at that, which you have to. You can't, if you delve deeper into things, it tells a bit of a story. I think he's probably one of those players that will go down as a grafter. Someone who, and I put this on Twitter earlier, was asked to do the role that lots of strikers wouldn't do. That he was asked to play as a smaller striker. I'm sure he, by his own admission, he's never been a target man, and was asked to basically compete against 6'2", 6'3" centre backs every single week, and did it. He didn't complain, or to our knowledge, he didn't complain. A good servant. Was asked to do a job that probably he didn't want to do, but he did it for the team. And probably one that was quite popular with the fans. And on that subject, I'm going to interject at this point, a super fan in That Millwall Podcast very own Ben Green. Listeners, if you could DM Ben on Twitter, he's very distraught at the news this evening. We tried to get him to do this recording, but unfortunately he was crying into his Tom Bradshaw pillow. So if you can send him a message on Twitter to cheer him up a little bit. But no, he, on a serious note, he was very popular with the fans, had a lot of time for the fans from what I've seen on social media. So certainly one that goes with a bit of a fond farewell.
I think if I remember correctly, I was just trying to search for the article, but I do remember seeing it. At the start of the season, he was talking about how he maybe could see his career out at Millwall. Like, to back up your point, Stephen, he definitely loved his time here. I think he's a local boy. I think Bexley Heath, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and he's resides locally. He's from the area. I guess for him, it was linked obviously in the summer window of that potential move to the glitz and glam of Disney Wrexham. Do you know what I mean? And it didn't happen in the end for whatever reason. Could be, at the time that Neil Harris didn't want him to go, or maybe Bradshaw didn't want to go. But obviously, since Neil's come in, Alex Neil, this is in this case, he hasn't featured, has he? It's obviously been Langstaff and Ivanovic kind of fighting for the number 9 shirt in a sense. I guess for him, then, now when I say it, Frankie, it's, I guess, a natural doors opening moment for him where he's got to move on, whether he likes it or not, unfortunately, in that case.
Yeah, and I think if he was to ask him where he'd want to go, I think Oxford would have been high in that list, of obviously returning to a Gary Rowett side, somewhere he's familiar and he knows he's going to get a manager that understands his game. So I think from his perspective, it all kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So, I think, yeah, as I said, good luck to him. Wish him nothing but the best. He's obviously been a great servant for the club at different times, and it wouldn't shock me to see him turn up at Oxford and helping them stay in the league, because Rowett knows how to get a tune out of him.
On that note,
can I just add in what you said there about him not necessarily having a choice? It's reported that there's an undisclosed fee. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, we touched on this earlier. What that looks like is probably not going to be a lot of money in the grand scheme of things with his contract situation, his age. But if Oxford are willing to pay whatever the fee is, Millwall would have been stupid to turn it down. Even if 100,000, 50,000, whatever, that money is money that is used. I know in the grand scheme of the Championship, £100,000 or below is not going to really, it's not groundbreaking, but it is something. It is recouping something. So I do think that perhaps played a little bit of a part in it. Maybe Bradshaw didn't want to go and the club have gone, look, we can't say no to this. This might pay the wage or certain part of the wage for an incoming or something.
Are we surprised about that? Like an undisclosed fee? I personally thought it would have been just rip the contract up, and if you're happy to go there, we're happy for you to go too, Stephen. Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess 100%. Look, it does make sense for all parties. It feels like it's like we mentioned, his 7th season with us. I guess what I'm trying to get onto now is the high points and the low points. I mean, he signed for us initially on loan with a view to a permanent. In that window where we lost George Saville last minute to Middlesbrough, that day we signed Ryan Leonard, we signed Bradshaw. I'm pretty sure Leonard tells the story, but I think Bradshaw's is similar, where it's deadline day, they're trying to run across to London and get the contract signed in a sense. It was real kind of last minute antics, and he joined at the time when we still had Lee Gregory at the club as well, Stephen. We was talking about it just before we came on. He got injured in his first season, done his ACL. Real setback for him, and I suppose when you put that into the context of his 210 games for Millwall, I think it actually gives it more credit for him, I feel like. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, he was the record signing for about an hour, wasn't he? And then obviously Ryan Leonard, with the deal for him, obviously eclipsed it slightly. He got injured just before we played Norwich that season, wasn't in the squad. I know we've talked about this off air, was moaning why we've signed a striker and he's not in the squad, and then it was announced he was injured. So sort of lay off him a little bit. But it started off in the wrong fashion. No player, certainly a striker, wants to be missing games, and he obviously missed a substantial amount of the season. And the fans and the club stuck by him, and that probably is where the loyalty come back with him. Not that clubs were maybe lining up to sign him, but he wanted to stay and wanted to fight for his position because the club stuck by him during obviously what was a difficult time. Lots of people will be very pleased because he might not be up to it now, but if you look at some of the goals that he scored in some of the games, I'm sure we'll come on to, the season, the almost season, some of the goals and the importance of the goals were irreplaceable that year with up top with Fleming. So lots of it started negatively, lots of effort, commitment, passion to the cause, and as I say, I won't take up too much of the goals because I'm sure you'll come on to that, but there were some very important ones in there.
I think Frankie, we love Millwall fans love a player that tries his hardest. Is to get to the whole. I'm not gonna say the buzzword of that something type player. you can critically understand.
Go on, do it. Go on.
Millwall type player. There you go.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that embody? That's not something we're getting into today because that all will go into a place we don't necessarily need to go to. But then again, here we are. So I think he definitely earned some credit in the bank, like Stephen mentioned about, he came back and had that affinity with the fans in a sense, and also I don't know if we said it before the show, Stephen, or maybe not, maybe during, but it was obviously about doing the dog work really and doing the hard yards. Do you know what I mean? And Frankie, on that, I think that does earn him some credit with the Millwall fans, didn't it? Really big time.
Definitely, and I think if you look at I was also actually having a think, and if you look at when he joined the club, he joined under Harris. Obviously, got injured that season, and didn't Harris leave the year after?
I believe so. Yeah.
So we just got fit. Then had a new manager coming in, and it felt like at times maybe he wasn't wasn't even Rowett's first choice at times, and there was maybe a little bit of uncertainty. Would he get a new deal? He was a sort of player that always seemed to fight back and earn his place in the side, regardless who the manager was, and you can only credit him for that, because I'm sure the fact that he was able to do that kind of speaks volumes of the man and how he performed and got stuck in on the pitch and on the training ground. So yeah, I mean, all credit to him. We've all would have said about Bradshaw. He ran his nuts off, didn't he? So and that's why he resonated with people, I think, in the stands at times.
Yeah, I don't know if the stats are in front of you, but can you see the breakdown of what sub appearances are and how many starts there are? I don't know if you can. If not, do you want to see if you can find that out? I'm intrigued tonight. I suspect, Stephen, there is quite a few. I'd probably say 60% more starts than and maybe 40% sub appearances, it feels like, because that is, again, something taken into the context of his statistics at the time of the club, isn't it? And he never seemed to grumble about it, did he?
No, I mean, he also played during a time, really. I know we had other options, but under Rowett at times, he was the only real striker, the option that we had. There was times where it was kind of like you'd hope that we'd get ahead so we could take him off, because you knew that you needed to roll him out the next game and the next game. That seemed to be a pattern. I'd be surprised if there was, I mean, maybe of late the substitute appearances sort of come in a little bit more, but I'd be surprised considering he had I think he was the number 9, the number 9 shirt. He would have been one of the players that played regularly. Obviously, after that injury against in that first season, I can't recall many times where he had a prolonged period apart from this season out. So fit and available, always, yeah. Just it's weird, really, because we've all done it. I mean, Oxford this year, coincidentally, when he come on, it just felt like it just was coming to the end, didn't it? It just felt that way, which is ironic that I know it's a different manager and a different style, so they might get a little bit more out of him, but it just felt like it was the right time. The grumblings have been there. Yeah, it's a shame it's gone this way, but I feel like he's probably got an opportunity where he's probably going to get an 18-month deal, probably got some security for himself and his family. So, best for all parties.
And stays in the Championship, probably earns similar sort of money as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I think I looked at his statistics now anyway. So season on season, he played 10 the first season, 45 the second season. He actually, I think, had an injury during COVID, I remember, because he played 29 in the 2020-21 season. And then he played 21, 22, 24 appearances where he got 9 goals. And that's kind of where it kick-started his prolific run of form. Frankie, you've kind of gone a bit quiet, so I'm hoping, stay still. I'm hoping you found some appearances as well for us. Do you want to add into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, mate. So, as you said, so 210 appearances all in all. 78 times he come on as a substitute, and 103 times he come off as a substitute. So, probably about 60, 70 games in there, he played the full 90 minutes. So not many, I guess, really, but actually probably more than I expected, if I'm being completely honest.
Interesting stats there, I think. Yeah, and I think what was coming on to you as well, Frankie, that run of form where 21-22 season, got 9-24, and then the big old season, 22-23, is most prolific for us, 17 and 41 in the Championship, mate. I mean, I guess we'll come on to the goals and the moments, but he kind of did really become a main linchpin with their old Zian Fleming, didn't they?
Yeah, and you can't give him enough credit for that, really, because if we look at some of the business that year that the club did, we literally only had one striker after we left in January. And for a player of his injury record, he would come out every week taped up, wouldn't he, and covered in bubble wrap some weeks. And for him to do what he was able to do as consistently as he did it that year, can't really speak highly enough of what he achieved that season for the club.
I can't believe he's overlooked Ollie Burke there that came in for Benicophobe, Stephen.
He was a winger, wasn't he, to be honest?
I know, but
I don't want to talk about it.
We both arrived that window, mate, you know.
Although he scored for Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga at the weekend, so there's still life in him. There's still life in him.
Unbelievable. Was it actually the Bundesliga they play in nowadays, is it?
Yeah. It was in the Bundesliga. Yeah. So, you know, Wrexham, when they get promoted, he'll be back there on the big money or whatever. I don't
know. But yeah, go on. I'd say obviously that window, that summer, that season in general, Stephen, I think some high points. I mean, we spoke about before we came on air, but obviously the 2 hat-tricks that season in particular stick in the memory.
Sky Sports special, wasn't he? Every time the cameras seemed to roll around, Tom Bradshaw decided to turn into a world beater. It's a shame that we weren't in the Premier League, so you've ended up probably the Golden Boot. But it just clicked, didn't it? I said off air, and Frankie made a point as well about when Afobe and him made that partnership, the pair of them looked quite good as a two. Then Afobe went and Bradshaw was kind of, you know, the Lone Ranger, the one man up top, however you want to describe it. As soon as someone come in with a little bit of quality that was playing a little bit closer to him, it clicked again. It just screamed that he needed a partner. And as I say, Fleming and Bradshaw together were very, very good. That, you know, you get all the graphics on Sky and all over Twitter and whatnot saying that, you know, this prolific, this partnership, this one, that. They were always considered. It's a shame it didn't count for much at the end. We've been there, we've spoke about it, we've felt it. You know, that season didn't go how we thought it would, especially where we were. And it's just half time, Blackburn. but it would have been nice to cap that season off and give both of them players probably the opportunity to play in the playoffs. Obviously, we fell short, and it kind of felt, you know, from there, was he ever really going to be able to emulate that again? We struggled the season after. Now we're in this season where he's not had much game time. So the Sheffield United game was unbelievable. As I said, he scored against Burnley, salvaged a point there in the same week. And Omar, I'll come back to you and ask you to tell me how that Friday night in Blackpool was after his 2 goals and, of course, Fleming.
It was unbelievable. I remember his goal in the second half where he dinks over the keeper. One more plays him. He takes it in his stride. This is the peak confidence of Tom Bradshaw, everyone. We all remember it. But in case you need to describe him, Watmore threads it through the needle of an eye. Unbelievable pass from Duncan Watmore. And then Bradshaw takes it in his stride. And then somehow he's fallen over at the same time and managed to chip over the keeper. It was a great goal, wasn't it? I think kind of highlighted the real confidence he had that season. And you're right to point out the strike partner scenario and having someone there to kind of share the load with him. And I think last season, whilst it was much the same, really, you know, Fleming was still here last season. Let's not forget that. But I think just different circumstances to it. You know, obviously, Gary Rowett didn't last much longer in the season, did he? And I think, you know, maybe Rowett is a manager who's going to join him again that really values him and gets the best out of him. Dare I say it? Should we predict how many goals he might have scored between now and the end of the season for Oxford United? And I'm going to ask you two to go first because I know what you're like, Stephen. You're going to turn it on me. But, Frankie, how many goals is Tom Bradshaw going to score for Oxford between now and the end of the season? I think this is a great question. And if you're also listening and watching on YouTube, get your predictions in the comment section below. How many goals is he going to score? Frankie?
I'm going to go 4.
4. How many games left? About 20? 19?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, so we're in that region. Stephen, how many goals is Tom Bradshaw going to score for Oxford?
It's difficult because I don't really know. 5.
5.
Go on, I'll go 5. I'll back him. I don't want him to score 5 though. That's the weird thing. But yeah,
is 5 in 20 odd games really backing a striker?
Well, no, but it's more back in Oxford. It's more back in Oxford, isn't it? Because of obviously their resurgence and the fact that Rowett's there. But It's if he scores 5 it's about 1 in 4. If it's 20, I know it might not be 20 games exactly, but we'll go with 5.
I think he scores 2. There you go.
No Sky Sports hat trick.
No, I'll answer on behalf of Ben as well. I reckon he's going to score 12 if we ask Ben. So there's Ben's prediction as well. Whilst we're here. So I think we didn't really get your high point, Frankie. But is there anything that sticks in the memory for Tom Bradshaw? I think he did. I know you mentioned about Harris as well because Harris signed him initially, didn't he? I know we speed up for it prior. He scored his last goal for him, his first spell, and obviously Harris loved him. But what's your kind of any highlights or lowlights or anything in particular that's lasting for you for Tom Bradshaw? I know it feels like we're doing a tribute show to him, but he's had 200 plus games for the club. So everyone, come on, respect the man.
I was just looking through it actually, and there's 2 that stand out. And the first one was when we beat Watford 3-0 when he got a hat trick, and he missed a sitter. Like 5 minutes into the game, you're thinking, oh, here we go. And the ball comes across the volley, and it's his shot from the outside of his foot away from the keeper. You're thinking, where on earth did that come from? It was an incredible goal. And then got a hat trick, and that was a first half hat trick, and that was the full Tom Bradshaw experience, I think. And then he got the second goal against Luton away, didn't he? It was about 5 yards offside.
Yeah, and that was the night Harris left, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, this is like when we was at Rowett, when we had Rowett, sorry.
Oh, he scored that day as well. Yeah, Phoebe scored as well, I think, that day.
Fleming got the first.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, because the keeper went in for his hands. Yeah.
Yeah, in the second half, Bradshaw tapped in a bit of a sitter from 2 yards out, but it was about 5 yards offside. How it counted, no idea. But at that moment, I was sure we were going out. We drew that game, so it went peaked on quite quickly. But
yeah, we were shithousing the 2-0 lead in the first place, weren't we? I think I've got an odd memory in my head of him scoring. That round of Christmas we had under Joe Edwards. He scored against Norwich, and he took again an unbelievable first touch and finish. I'm pretty sure in the first half against Norwich. So he had them little flash in the pan moments that really suggested he does have the quality. He's been a bagsman at League One and Championship level, and I think if he should be interested how he gets on elsewhere, I think we'll swiftly move on from him anyway. Well, Stephen's got something to add. Actually,
one more. I think he scored against QPR that Christmas as well. A little sliding tap in at the back post. It just looked like everything had changed and gone back to what we thought. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, as you said, Omar, I think people will sort of say, he's not the best player we've ever had, but he played over 200 games for us. I think it's only right that we give him a little bit of a respectful send off, shall we say?
I think so, because it feels like it's come to a tame end, but there's been moments where, like we've just recited it, it's come back to you as you talk about it. He's been a good servant for us and he's done his job for us. So all the best, Tom Bradshaw. Let's talk about your replacement that's supposedly been linked with us, and that's Aaron Connolly. So I did briefly mention this in the show I've done previously with Ben chaps, but obviously we have been linked with Aaron Connolly. He's obviously came through at the academy at Brighton Hove Albion, highly anticipated there. And I remember him breaking through around the time of Graham Potter, where they had a lot of Thursday night European games, and he featured heavily in some of them and kind of started to make a name for himself. And I remember him getting a couple of loan spells. You look at his goal scoring record, and it's not prolific, admittedly. It's maybe another replacement for Tom Bradshaw. But I don't envisage him coming in as being the first choice, Stephen. But he's 24 years of age. He's played for his country. He's got, he's had some off the field issues that that's been seen online, and he seems like he needs a home, is what I feel like, and somewhere that maybe someone can get the best out of him, a lot of that potential out of him. Is that going to be Alex Neil? That's the question I'm going to ask you.
I'll answer that in a slightly different way. Is that going to be Millwall? Because we do seem to have this, I don't want to say aura, but we seem to have this way about us that we take in these players that are misfits. Mason Bennett is one that springs to mind a little bit, that needed somewhere to settle, and obviously Rowett was a part of that. But that we seem to take on, and everyone thinks, what are you doing? When he was linked with us, everyone's thinking this is an absolutely tragic signing. What's going on? When you see that he's replacing Tom Bradshaw and you think about it, he might not be the first choice. We've replaced a 32, 33-year-old with a potential 24-year-old. It does make sense. He was highly rated at Brighton, and that does have to count for something. I am obviously concerned, the elephant in the room, that he has had his very much publicised off the field issues. Again, Alex Neil reminds me of a much like Neil Harrett, a little bit more old school type manager, head coach, whatever you want to describe it. And I think if anyone's going to try and get him focused, I think Alex Neil could be a good fit. But it's Mill, isn't it? It's what we do. We sign players that are not wanted anywhere else, or that are not fancied or out of favour, and we try to make them, give them that home, if you will, in football. So I'm still 50-50 because there's other attacking options that we're either missing or potentially or leaving the club. And that the first attacker that's coming through the door is someone who's got off the field problems, but we got to give him a chance. And I'm more than happy to do that if he's not going to be first choice.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty fair to say. Obviously, investing quite heavily in our young Serb. Frankie, what's your initial thoughts? I mean, obviously, it was firstly when reading upon the news, what was your gut instinct with it, and how are you feeling now? Obviously, a couple of days on from that, do you warm to the idea of it if it happens?
I had nothing against it in the first place, to be completely honest with you. I think he's whilst he probably comes in probably lacking a little bit of form from his time at Sunderland. He got 8 goals last year in the league for Hull, and that made him our top goal scorer in the league. Mm-hmm. So he ain't that bad. And I think ultimately we've got rid of a striker that's 32, he's probably seen his best days behind him, and replaced him with a guy that's 24 with the potential for upside. Whether he gets it or not, who knows? But if it's for the right money and the right wages, let's give it a go. I mean, there's literally no harm in it, is there?
No, and I think he joined on a short-term deal at Sunderland, his current club, after the whole City spell. And I don't suspect there'll be a fee involved there, if any at all, similar to the Tom Bradshaw scenario going to Oxford. And I don't know if you guys have caught that interview that he done when he first signed for Sunderland, but it was a 20-minute kind of interview talking about his struggles. But also what I saw there was someone that was quite keen to get past them struggles as well. And someone that, if you can, like I mentioned earlier, just unlock that potential, Frankie, I think that will be, it could be something that could work out to be super. I think Connolly came through the same time as Jason Malumbi, for example, at Brighton, that kind of Irish contingent they had. And, it was thought of probably higher than Jason Malumbi at the time when we had him on loan, for example, albeit different positions. So the potential was there. It's just whether we can find that for him, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I think Steve hit now on the head. We have got a track record of picking up players like this and getting a tune out of them and helping them find their feet. So hopefully he can be another one that we can get something from. I'm just looking again some of his stats now. He has played on both wings as well and is in the 10. Not many times, but he has done it. So he hopefully gives us a little bit of versatility that can play in a couple of positions. I don't see much downside if the money's right and if he's on the right wages. He's got the opportunity to come prove himself and kickstart his career.
What sort of impact does this have on the existing strikers at the club, Stephen? So one comes to mind, Macaulay Langstaff. I know you was asking a question about him yesterday in the chat, for example. It feels like it's just a one out, one in. That's if on the face of it. But if you're someone like Langstaff, would you be worried? Would you be concerned? What do you think on that one?
If I was Langstaff, I'd be questioning what the plan is moving forward, because obviously Connolly will come in and no one should be given assurances of any game time, but he's not going to want to come in and sit on the bench every week. He's going to want to get some minutes, which would impact Langstaff. I must admit, on Monday yesterday, the fact he wasn't in the squad against the opposition that we were playing, no disrespect to Dagenham, but unless there's an injury, which it doesn't, no one said anything. No one seems to, I haven't seen it personally. I don't know if I've missed that. It just seems really, really odd that he wasn't involved. It could have been an opportunity to get him a goal, get him some confidence. I've been very vocal about Langstaff on social media. I was really excited about him signing. I really thought we'd gone for a really high profile striker in the Football League, and it's just not quite worked out. I'm going to throw a question back to you, Omar, and Frankie as well, but I'm going to make Omar go first because that's what he does to both of us. Providing that Connolly signs, if it's before this weekend, who knows? And providing that Langstaff stays at the club, which one of those two scores more goals between now and the end of the season?
God, Stephen, what are you doing to me? I think Langstaff. What I heard going around the ground, he had a sore calf. I don't know how true that was yesterday, but that's the rumor that was going around about him. So he didn't feature. No need to risk him. Blah 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 blah. I agree with you though. I think obviously the Bradshaw, absence can be explained quite clearly now because we know he's leaving to go to Oxford. So, I think if you're Langstaff, you definitely will be asking questions like you said. In answer to your question, who scores more goals? It's hard. It's a hard question to equate to, isn't it? If you don't know how long each are going to feature. But if you ask me,
right, so Omar's sitting on the fence.
It's not a question because we're signing Connolly, so I imagine Neil likes him. With that logic behind that, I'd reckon Connolly might score more goals than Langstaff to the end of the season because we wouldn't sign someone just for the sake of it. There must be some sort of interest in there to see what he's about and maybe give him opportunities. And that might mean it limits Langstaff's opportunities. And therefore, by law of averages, I'm going to say that Connolly scores more goals than Langstaff.
Frankie?
You've done me in there, Omar, because before you said all that, that's literally what I was going to say. I was hoping I was going to get the opportunity to sound really intelligent. But no, Langstaff would be naive to think that a guy that's signing for this manager won't get a fair crack at the whip because he's signing, right? So I think he'll definitely get an opportunity that maybe Langstaff's already had with Harris. So in that sense, I'm really unsure. If I had to put money on it, I'd say they're probably both going to get 2 goals.
Yeah,
score the same amount. To be completely honest with you, but if I can't say that, I'll go Langstaff.
Yeah, just before you come in, Stephen. Sorry, 1 second. Just before you come in. On Langstaff, I do think he's probably the better finisher of the two. But I do actually think Connolly might feature more. That's probably how I feel it might play out. I think if Langstaff played yesterday, he would have scored a hat trick as opposed to what Ivanovic served up. If I'm totally honest, that's my gut instinct. But I could be completely wrong. But yeah, go on with your point.
So the next question, I'll go to Frankie first, and this is specifically on Connolly. Is Connolly? It's a 2-part question. Is Connolly an Alex Neil signing, or is it because we have the issues we do with Coburn's fitness, and Marku is obviously out until March? Are we just covering ourselves just in the short term to make sure that we've got some forward options? Because it's interesting, you both went down he's an Alex Neil signing, but I'm not so sure if that's how it works. The director of football is, Gallen is well publicised what his role is at the club. And so I guess what I'm saying is it a case of Alex Neil has gone, this is the type of player we've won, and that's the discussion? Or is it a case of we've gone, look, we need some attackers. This might be available. Let's get him in short term just to get us over the line. So is he a Neil signing, or is it just get someone in because we're lacking in numbers?
I very much doubt it would have been Alex Neil's first choice of centre forward if he was given an option. It strikes me as a bit of a situation, just a bit of player trading of you've lost one, get another one in. You're pretty much like for like squad numbers wise. I also think that Alex Neil wouldn't be here if Alex Neil wasn't happy to work with him, happy to get him in the door. So he's Alex Neil signing in that sense, but I don't think he would have been his number one target when he signed on as Mill manager. So probably a bit of both, Stephen. But I guess what I would say, I'm not sure he suits our style any more than Langstaff does, which is something that we've always touched on a lot. So I think it's probably where you're going to go with this.
And that leads me on really nicely, Omar. I'll give you the chance to come in here. The style of football and the style of what I've seen of Connolly and the stats and how tall he is, etc. Are we going to change the way we're playing football to fit him coming into the team?
I think he's more. We've spoken about his versatility because I remember him playing in various positions for Brighton. I think that might benefit how we play. I don't think we'll change how we play, but I think you might see him feature more in the wide positions as opposed to Langstaff, for example. I think he offers that versatility. We've got the injuries, like you mentioned. If it's a short-term deal, I think it's a short-term deal with the hope of it working out, personally. Because if it's just a short-term deal for short-term purposes, I don't think we would have bothered selling Bradshaw, personally. Because unless it's like, I get the gamble of rolling the dice, but if it's for the sake of just, it's not going to be beyond this season. Connolly, you might play 3 games between the end of the season. I don't think we'd have bothered doing it. I don't see the logic in that. I would have kept Bradshaw to the end of the season, let him run his contract down and go to Oxford at the end of the window. But he just dropped my laptop there. But I think that's I don't understand. Yeah, I don't. I think he might. I don't think he'll need to change the system to fit him. I think he might fit in other areas that we maybe not really legislate for. There you go.
I just look at it and I just wonder, with any player that's coming into the club, apart from a goalkeeper, because if you sign up as a reserve goalkeeper, you know that unless something drastic happens, you're going to be sitting on the bench. That's just how it works. I don't see why someone who's dead keen on rebuilding his career, maybe rebuilding his reputation, trying to get back to towards the potential that people saw in him as a younger player, why he would just come and settle for a bit part role. Personally, I think we're going to see quite a bit of him if he's coming in the door, whether or not he's Alex Neil or what. My gut feeling is that it's a deal that we're looking at younger players to try and get the best out of, and perhaps see if we can get them to potential and whatever value that may look like. And in this case, it's a case of, right, we'll do it on the short term. We'll have the option to extend if it works. It'll be in our favour. And we'll say to him, prove yourself and you'll get a longer term contract. And I think he'll be given that opportunity to do so, personally.
No, I'm with you on that.
Just while we're asking questions, if we'd signed him in the summer off of the back of an 8-goal season and Bradshaw left in the summer for Wrexham, do you think we'll be talking about it differently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you?
100%.
Yeah, big time. I think that's what's interesting. So we talk about him rebuilding his career. He probably hasn't got an option but to leave Sunderland because he's just not playing. And you look at what Sunderland fans are saying, and they're pretty. They kind of agree he can't play up top by himself, which is what we do. So it does kind of always go back to the thing of we've got 4 centre forwards, 2 of them are target men, 2 of them aren't, and it's a bit of a mess in that sense. There's no sort of, it's not consistent, is it? But yeah, it's just interesting.
I don't know if we've not seen yet an Alex Neil. Yesterday's performance against Dagenham and Redbridge can't be taken as this is how we're going to play. It's still early days, isn't it? So it's interesting because it could be something that he changes. He could opt to change formation and surprise us all. He's got another few days on the training pitch before Hull City on the weekend. It's an interesting conundrum, I think, to have. But I do think we might see Connolly feature in other positions other than just up front. Is what my gut says, especially with some injuries that we're picking up at the minute. I've not heard about what Femi Cease's injury is just yet. Hopefully it's not serious, but add that to Watmore, add that to the absentees of Esse leaving. There will be room for the versatility, and I think that maybe he offers that more than Bradshaw did, and therefore maybe it makes sense as well to swap him out for Bradshaw in that sense. So we'll see. I think we've obviously covered Connolly in a fair bit of detail there, and obviously spoke about, done a little moral for Tom Bradshaw's departure. I wanted to talk about another bit of breaking news today, if you trust sources online. Another team has entered the race for Roman Esse, apparently, Stephen, and that goes by the name of Bournemouth. Firstly, I kind of saw the link and I understood that a little bit, to be fair. What was your thought when you saw
that? Honestly, and I had this discussion the other day with a couple of fans about, it's very odd that Crystal Palace were the only club that were making the moves that they have for Esse. There was a lot, he's been linked. There's been so many scouts, foreign clubs, English clubs, everywhere. But people have been talking and looking at him. And for one club to really be going for it, obviously we found out that the revelation of the release clause. So they're obviously paying a bit more to get him now. But other clubs, I don't know, maybe weren't expecting Palace to do it. I don't know. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Bournemouth are in for him. It was, rumoured that they and Newcastle were interested. Bournemouth are flying at the moment. I know they're playing tonight. I think they were winning. I don't know any of the scores, but they're flying. So for that would be a good fit. They have got some younger players and that are coming through the system. So there's an opportunity to play. It's whether you believe the sources that are someone really going to go this late to, it was all but done to Palace. He was basically signing on the dotted line, and it's whether you believe someone's come in. I would like to think that they are. I'd like to think that other clubs wouldn't pass up the opportunity on someone that's clearly highly thought of. That's my opinion. Whether or not he goes there is another matter. I hope he does, but that's another issue.
It feels like a bit. You're right to mention, obviously, Stephen, about the players seeming desperate to get done quick before the release clause, and only they're interested. I suppose it opens up interesting conversation there, Frank, doesn't it? Is there maybe part of it, maybe Millwall leaking that, or maybe his agents leaking that? Because the deal, I feel like for Esse was broke end of last week, and we're here to Tuesday evening. And it hasn't gone through yet. And he was at the game yesterday, seeing going into the ground, I think an hour before kickoff. He hasn't gone yet. It's interesting, isn't it? Are Palace dragging their feet, and maybe clubs are trying to, maybe the agents trying to force their hand, saying, "Come on, let's get this done," or is there saying actually got his head turned by another club? It's a good dynamic, but it's also shows the merry-go-round of these transfer spells, doesn't it?
It wouldn't shock me if we were dragging our heels. And if you think of what Gallon's job is, Gallon's job would have been to get on the phone to every single club that's even asked a question and gone, "Well, here's the fee. Can you better it if you want it?" I think Bournemouth's a particularly interesting one because I want to say they've got a centre forward and a winger that both did their ACLs last week.
Yes, they have. Evangelson and Unal.
Yeah, so he'll probably play right, which is what he'll be after. And I think the opportunity to go and work for a manager of that pedigree is something that he'd be silly to not seriously consider. As you said, Omar, I think the agent will be busy texting every single person he knows as well, trying to get the best deal possible for the player and by extension for himself. And the more clubs that enter the race and have a look, the better for us, really. I'm surprised he's still here, to be completely honest. And I think the fact he is suggests that maybe something's still in the water with other clubs.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think you look through their squad as well, Bournemouth. You've got Travers in goal, who's featured them quite heavily in the EFL. You've got Lewis Cook, who's played in the EFL for Leeds. You've also got Brooks, who's been at Sheffield United and played in the EFL. You've got Semenyo. You've got Tavernier. All these players that have featured in the EFL. So there is, Alex Scott as well. So you've got all these players that are similar, isn't it, Stephen? That in that Palace mould where they're getting praised for Adam Wharton and Elise and Eze and all these players. It shows that these kind of clubs are definitely there that might tempt Esse, isn't it? So you could see a head turner situation, I suppose.
And also, they got big money for Dominic Solanke in the summer. So that, to my knowledge, the Evangelson, the guy who's just got injured, the forward, I don't know how much they paid for him, but I can't imagine it would have been anywhere near the region that they got for Solanke. So they do have money. They do have. So would still have some money, left over. Bournemouth are a really interesting club as well because by all rights, let's be honest, they shouldn't be as successful as they are, but they've got it right. They have it right. They've brought in some good players. They obviously, the managers, settled now that everything seems to be going in the right direction. It might just be, we're talking about our best player potentially going to one of our rivals, and we probably would rather him go anywhere else. Let's be honest. Everybody's thinking, we knew it was coming. We wish him well, but it's bloody Palace. That's how we all feel. And maybe it's a little bit, we're getting excited over something that is just agent talk. But Frankie, I think, was spot on when he said that I'm amazed he's still here. These deals nowadays, Millwall don't have bargaining power. The only bargaining power we've got at the moment is that the release, if they want him now, we can ask for a little bit more money. That's the only bargaining power we've got. If Palace were prepared to meet that, then what is there to be done? He's going to play in the Premier League. He doesn't have to relocate. He's going to be earning a lot more money than what he's on now. Everything screams he should have signed, but he hasn't. So, but why? But why?
Maybe it's formality. It's just a matter of time. But I think if you're
Yeah, look,
you know what I mean.
we'll wake up.
It's interesting, isn't it?
We'll wake up tomorrow morning, and on the way into work, it'll be done. Now we've had this podcast to go, and it'll be by the time this goes out, we look well. I will now look stupid, but I don't believe that's going to happen. There is something, in my opinion, because it should be a formality, but you never know in football, do you?
What about the hypothetical world where it falls through and he's still here at the end of the window? What could that do to someone like Esse? What do we think? I mean, he strikes me as someone that will get his head back down and hopefully flourish again. But we've got to remember he's only 19 years old as well, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah. I mean, the release clause is there for a reason. He knows that come the summer, he'll have the choice of 10 clubs. He can go wherever he wants. Let's be honest. That's what that release clause was in there for. I think Roman Esse, for what it's worth, I tweeted this. I played in the charity fans game a couple of times. The first game I played in, Esse was there. He spoke to every person that was playing in the game. He watched the game. He's probably a role model to kids as an individual. I don't see his head being turned. I don't see him being a difficult player. I think he would get back out on the training field. He'd be back out in the Millwall team, and he will try his best for the club. I've got no doubts about that.
No, I agree. I do agree with you. I think it's just what could the impact be is, I suppose, something that's worth asking there. Frankie, have you got anything to add on the Roman Esse situation? Also, I haven't really seen any other transfer leaks, so I feel like you're normally on these ones, but I've not seen anything apart from the Jeffrey Schlupp random one 2 days ago, and that had no credibility. It felt like
no, we haven't been looking at anyone really at all. I've said that there was a Dutch centre back. I don't think there was much in that else, to be honest with you. I think with the Esse situation, and whether you two boys agree, it'd be interesting to know. But would you rather sell him now for 15, 16? Or would you rather keep him in for 12 in the summer? I think I'd rather just let him go and have the extra money. If I'm going to be completely honest, we're not going to do anything this year, right? We're not going to get playoffs. I guess we maybe could still go down, but I think I'd rather take the money if I'm going to be completely honest. I don't usually think.
I think the timing of it is an interesting one. I think, Stephen, I'll get your opinion on that. If we've got to add on that.
The 100%. Yeah, the timing just screams that Palace are trying to get ahead of the game. And just to touch on what you said, Frankie, I don't know how true this is, but we're able to negotiate a sell-on fee if they sell him, if we sell him now. But if the release clause comes in, that goes. It all changes. So yeah, it just. Look, I don't want to lose. We don't want to lose Roman Esse, but we know it's coming. So, do we take the extra money and the potential of extra money in the future, or do we say thanks for getting us to 12th in the league? I don't want him to go, but I'd rather take the extra money and what comes with it personally.
It's an interesting question, isn't it, I suppose? And if anyone's watching, listening, be sure to get your thoughts in about the Roman Esse saga. Do we think he might not be going to Crystal Palace? Do we think he might be moving on somewhere else? I've randomly opened the league table just for context, obviously talking about us selling Esse, and I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on who else we think might come in or how many more do we need. So we're 14th place on 25 games, meaning there's 21 games left of the season for us. Oxford have 20 games left, by the way, and the Bradshaw related question. We are 7 points clear of Portsmouth, who have a game in hand on us. They played 24 this season, Portsmouth. And we are 10 points off the playoffs with a game in hand on West Brom. It's a real crossroads moment. You know, that's how I feel personally about it, guys. We're on 30 points. We should have enough to stay up. We should, though, right, Frankie? We should.
we can keep saying it, I guess. I mean, keep trying
it's the pressure, isn't it?
Ourselves.
Are you worried?
Until we're mathematically safe, I'm always worried because it's Millwall. And if anyone could find a way of spectacularly shooting ourselves in the foot, I think we've proven it's probably us.
An interesting question we put in our chat earlier, Stephen. I think you asked about Ryan Longman, didn't you? And you asked whether or not because he's been linked with the Oxford move as well, would link up with Gary Rowett again. And I think you put a post question, would we go for him? And I think the general consensus was now that we've got these funds available, if Esse goes, we should be looking for a higher caliber of player or a higher ceiling of potential, right? But it's always easier said than done, isn't it, Stephen? As well in that sense as well, and I do feel we're short, especially with Esse leaving.
I was going to say, can you ask me the question about what I think is going to happen come the end of this month and the end of the transfer window? Because right now, our attacking options, if Watmore's out, Amaku's out, Coburn's out, Esse's leaving, we're severely depleted in an area that we already struggling in the league. I think that we are at least in the bottom 3 for the goal scorers in the division. We may even be bottom now. I'm not sure on that, but I am concerned that we are very, very light, and we've got a few players that have got longer term injuries, so they're not going to be back for a while. I think we'll be okay. It's just, as Frankie said, we have got a spectacular record of shooting ourselves in the foot in situations that we really, really shouldn't. You know, it's happened on plenty of occasions, especially in our lifetimes. So I am concerned. I'll be happier at the end of the window once we kind of know what we've got and hopefully have made some additions. To touch on what you said about Ryan Longman, if we was to sign a really top name and Longman, I'd be really happy. If it was just Longman, I'd be slightly on the fence, a bit disappointed that we haven't maybe tried to go a little bit further.
Another question to the chat about Ryan Longman, I suppose, and would people be happy with that? Would you be happy with Ryan Longman-esque signing? It seems like he's got an Oxford anyway, so it's a non-question in a sense, Frankie. But if we was to sign someone like that, what was your take on that?
Yeah, I would be happy with him, but it'd be very similar to a Connolly deal. I'd want to see someone like a Watmore maybe go out, and then you bring Longman in, and the overall quality of the squad's probably improved a little bit. I wouldn't want him to come in and be a starter per se. More of a squad player that can play a couple of positions and score your screamer. But all
Huddersfield away like he did last season, guys. Do you know what I mean? And we'll see us lose 1-0 at Huddersfield away.
Yeah,
that was George Honeyman's fault though. He missed an absolute sitter when he tried to shoulder the ball instead of heading it. But it's not it.
I was there. I lived it. Saw it.
So did I.
For the second, do you know what I mean? But there we go. We live and learn.
Do we ever learn though, Omar? Do we?
No, we don't. We don't. We don't. But look, I think we've got more home games than aways. I feel like for the season, and there's a lot of. We've got to just get the home form building up, and that should be enough to see us through. I'm not worried about relegation, but I just think there's a lot of changes happening at the foot at the moment, and it could go one of two ways. I feel like, and I don't think there's a middle ground here. It could go really well or really shit, and the really shit could mean we're in trouble. That's just my general take on it, and I hope it doesn't go that way whatsoever. But we'll see. Do either of you have anything else to add on this show, which we plan to do for 30 minutes? It's done now, been on 53 minutes. And if you're still here towards the end, give them something to add. What should they put on to their comment?
I've got the perfect thing for them to add. When is this going out? Sorry?
It'll be out in the morning. So we'll be out tomorrow.
Right, so it'll be out Wednesday morning. So when this goes out, one of the three of us will have 2 days left in their 20s, and this weekend we'll be celebrating a big birthday. You probably can tell if you're watching this, the big grin on his face. Omar is celebrating his 30th birthday this weekend. So if you see him on Saturday, wish him a happy birthday. If you've got his number, got him on Twitter, just bombard him with happy birthday messages on Friday. And if anyone is still made it to this point, if you could put a pre-happy birthday message to Omar, we would all very much appreciate it.
Oh, Stephen.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think that's a nice way to end that. Thank you. You can't beat that one.
You wait to the abuse you get now. You won't be going,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, big 3 eyes coming in soon. But there we go. We're going to wrap it up anyway. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment below all the questions we post to you there. And if you've got anything to go back on about what we've said, we want to hear it. We'll come back at you and comment in the comment section back, and maybe we can get you on a show if you want to say your case. Frankie, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Pleasure to be here.
Onwards and upwards. And Stephen, thank you for that. And thank you for joining me tonight, mate.
It's always a pleasure, boys. Always a pleasure.
Roll on the weekend, and hopefully maybe a new signing in of Aaron Connolly. But yeah, thanks guys, and we'll see you again soon.